More than 40 years after the 1984 presidential election, the Reagan-Bush '84 campaign identity continues to appear on T-shirts, hats, and other merchandise. Many of the people wearing it today were not even alive when the campaign took place. That raises an interesting political design question. Why do certain campaign identities disappear immediately after Election Day, while others remain recognizable for generations? In August 2025, Burlington Press CEO Scott Sutton was interviewed by The Washington Post for an article examining the renewed popularity of Reagan-Bush '84 merchandise. The conversation went beyond political nostalgia. It explored how a campaign identity that is unmistakably rooted in the 1980s has remained visually recognizable decades later. Most political design is created for a very short period of time. A campaign launches, yard signs appear, mail reaches voters, and Election Day arrives. After the election, much of that visual material quickly disappears. The Reagan-Bush '84 identity is one of the exceptions. Modern campaigns cannot predict whether their logo will still appear on shirts 40 years from now. They can, however, learn several valuable lessons from a political identity that has achieved such lasting recognition. A political logo must establish a clear identity. One of the greatest challenges in political logo design is the temptation to include too much. Campaigns may want the logo to communicate the candidate's name, office, community, political affiliation, platform, personality, and campaign slogan all at once. While each of those elements may matter, trying to place all of them into one logo can produce a cluttered design that voters struggle to recognize. A political logo does not need to explain the entire campaign. Its first responsibility is to create a clear visual identity around the candidate's name. That name may be seen for only a few seconds on a roadside sign. It may appear in the corner of a direct mail piece, across the front of a T-shirt, or at the top of a campaign website. In each situation, voters should be able to identify the candidate quickly. The Reagan-Bush '84 identity gave the candidates' names unmistakable visual priority. There was no confusion about what the design represented. It was bold, direct, and easy to recognize. That same principle applies whether someone is running for president, Congress, county commissioner, mayor, or a local school board. The scale of the election may change. The need for clarity does not. Familiar political imagery still needs personality. Red, white, and blue. Stars and stripes. Flags and bold lettering. These elements have been part of American political design for generations, and for good reason. They immediately communicate patriotism, public service, and electoral politics. The challenge is that nearly every campaign has access to the same visual vocabulary. When those elements are used without a clear design strategy, one campaign can begin to look like every other candidate on the ballot. A star placed between two names and a red stripe beneath them may look political, but it may not be memorable. Strong political branding finds a balance between familiarity and distinction. A campaign identity should feel appropriate for the office and audience without becoming completely interchangeable. That distinction may come from the typography, arrangement, shapes, color balance, or another recognizable visual feature. The Reagan-Bush '84 identity did not reject familiar American campaign imagery. Instead, it organized those elements in a way that became closely associated with that particular campaign. The lesson for modern candidates is not to imitate the Reagan-Bush logo. It is to understand that familiar political imagery still needs to be used with purpose and personality. The candidate's name has to work hard. Political campaigns are unusual branding projects because the candidate's name is usually the most important element. A business logo may rely heavily on a symbol, icon, or abstract mark. Political campaigns rarely have that luxury. Voters must be able to read, remember, and correctly identify the candidate's name. That becomes especially important when the name is long, unfamiliar, or shared with another candidate. Typography, spacing, and hierarchy all play an important role. The name should remain legible from a distance and at smaller sizes. It also needs to stand apart from the office sought, slogan, party designation, and other supporting information. This does not mean every political logo must use oversized block lettering. It means the design should establish a clear order of importance. The voter should never have to search for the candidate's name. Recognition is built through consistency. Even the strongest logo will struggle to build recognition if it changes every time voters encounter it. The same basic identity should carry through yard signs, direct mail, palm cards, websites, social media graphics, apparel, event signage, fundraising materials, and digital advertising. Colors should remain consistent. Typography should feel connected. The candidate's name should be presented in a recognizable manner. This does not mean every campaign piece needs to use the same exact layout. A roadside sign has different requirements than a direct mail postcard. A social graphic may need a different composition than a T-shirt or website header. The formats can change while the identity remains recognizable. A voter might pass a campaign sign on the way to work, receive a mailer several days later, and see a social post that evening. When those pieces share a clear visual identity, each encounter reinforces the others. Without that consistency, each campaign piece has to introduce the candidate all over again. Repetition is what transforms a logo into a political brand. Political branding is more than a logo. A logo is an important starting point, but it is only one part of the campaign's identity. Political branding also includes the use of photography, headline styles, supporting typefaces, colors, graphic elements, and the overall presentation of information. It influences whether the campaign feels established, approachable, energetic, traditional, reform-minded, or community-focused. The visual tone should support the candidate and the office being sought. A judicial candidate may need a restrained and professional identity. A candidate for a local community office may benefit from something warmer and more approachable. A reform campaign may call for a bolder, more energetic presentation. The right design is not determined by whichever logo style happens to be popular during that election cycle. It should be shaped by the candidate's personality, message, constituency, and campaign strategy. A visually attractive logo that feels disconnected from the candidate can create the wrong impression. The strongest political branding feels authentic while still presenting the candidate as organized, credible, and prepared. A campaign identity must work in the real world. Political logos are not created simply to look good on a computer screen. They need to work under real campaign conditions. A logo may be printed on a small button, enlarged for a roadside sign, placed on the front of a postcard, reproduced on apparel, or displayed on a mobile phone. It may need to work in full color, limited colors, or black and white. Those applications expose weaknesses that may not be noticeable in the original design presentation. Thin lettering may disappear when printed at a small size. Intricate details may not reproduce cleanly on a T-shirt. A long slogan can overwhelm a yard sign. Low-contrast colors may become difficult to read from across the street. Campaign materials also have practical production limitations. Sign printing, direct mail, apparel decoration, and digital media all reproduce artwork differently. That is why political branding should be developed with the entire campaign in mind from the beginning. The question should not only be, does the logo look good? It should also be, will voters recognize it wherever they encounter the campaign? Design for the voter, not just the campaign team. Political design decisions are often made by committees. The candidate may have one preference. A consultant may have another. Volunteers, family members, and supporters may all offer opinions. Before long, a logo can become an attempt to satisfy everyone involved in the campaign. But the design is not primarily for the campaign team. It is for the voter. That does not mean the candidate's preferences are irrelevant. The identity still needs to feel authentic to the person it represents. However, design decisions should ultimately be evaluated based on whether they help voters recognize, understand, and remember the campaign. A favorite color may not provide enough contrast. A detailed symbol may be personally meaningful but impossible to recognize on a yard sign. A clever slogan may sound good in conversation but become difficult to read on campaign materials. Political branding works best when strategy takes priority over personal preference. Memorable does not always mean timeless. Designers often use the word timeless to describe branding that avoids obvious trends. But a political campaign identity does not necessarily need to look as though it could have been created during any decade. Sometimes a design remains memorable precisely because it captures the feeling of a particular moment. The Reagan-Bush '84 identity is clearly connected to the 1980s. Its visual character is part of what makes it recognizable today. Rather than becoming anonymous with age, it became closely tied to a specific campaign and political era. Modern campaigns should not blindly follow design trends simply to appear current. They also should not be so cautious that their identity has no personality at all. A safe, generic logo may avoid criticism from the campaign committee. It may also be forgotten by voters. The goal is not to create something trendy for the sake of being different. It is to create something appropriate, distinctive, and recognizable. A logo should support the entire campaign. Campaign branding works best when it is connected to the larger marketing plan. The logo should provide a visual foundation for the campaign's direct mail, signs, apparel, website, and other voter communications. Those materials should reinforce the same identity while delivering different messages at different stages of the race. A campaign launch may focus on introducing the candidate. Later mail pieces may address specific issues, qualifications, or contrasts with an opponent. Get out the vote materials may require a greater sense of urgency. The message can evolve while the campaign remains visually connected. This is especially important in races where voters receive communications from multiple candidates within a short period of time. Consistent branding helps each new message build upon the recognition created by the previous one. Political design should not be treated as a collection of unrelated projects. It should function as a coordinated system. What modern campaigns can learn from Reagan-Bush '84. Most campaigns are not trying to create a logo that will still appear on merchandise 4 decades later. They are trying to build enough recognition to win an election. The enduring Reagan-Bush '84 identity offers several useful reminders. A political logo should be clear before it is clever. The candidate's name should remain the priority. Familiar political imagery still needs a distinctive treatment. The identity must be used consistently, and it needs to function across every major campaign application. Most importantly, effective political branding should support the candidate rather than compete with the message. It should help the campaign appear credible, organized, and prepared. It should give supporters a visual identity they can rally around. And it should help voters recognize the candidate when the name appears in their mailbox, along the road, online, and ultimately on the ballot. At Burlington Press, we approach political campaign design as more than the creation of an individual logo. We consider how the identity will work across direct mail, yard signs, palm cards, apparel, websites, social media, and other voter touchpoints. Because a political brand is not built through one design. It is built every time a voter sees it.